show you how tender it is, okay? Some of the toughest meat ever, and it just, look at that. Just pulls apart beautifully. Oh yeah, look. Just comes right apart, right off.
Well guys, life is sometimes disappointing. You often convince yourself that something's gonna go your way and it's gonna work out for you, and then you're forced to watch as it all crumbles right before your very eyes. And that, my friends, is exactly what has happened to me today. Now, the Cooking with Jack show is the greatest cooking show to ever be made. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the show, you might be asking, okay, why is it great? Is it because of the skillful cooking, the easy to follow recipes, the knowledge of the host? Well, the answer to every one of those questions is a strong no. It's good because it's bad. But today I thought that might just be about to change. You see, I was watching one of Jack's videos, Lazy Man's Pot Roast, and he actually had a somewhat decent foundation. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still Jack we're talking about, so it's not like it was great, but it was something. But once he started to get into the recipe, it went, downhill does not even describe it. He was going for pot roast and ended up with what is essentially challenging to eat soup. That's about the best description I can give verbally, so let me just show you.
Please subscribe. I'm just going to show you exactly the little bit of things you're going to need. Now, I have a huge thing of olive oil. You're not going to need all this, but you're going to need a little bit of olive oil. I buy it in a large quantity because I'm using olive oil all the time.
You know, what's funny is that I almost believed that this was true, that Jack would need this giant jug of olive oil just because he cooked more than other people. But yeah, shortly we're about to find out that that is not the reason.
You can use different cuts of meat. I'm using beef round, and you can use a low cut. Once again, this is really cool because you can get a cheap piece of meat and make it really tender because this is going to cook in the oven for a long time.
Okay, so if you don't know your meats, beef round is pretty much the worst beef you can buy. The only application for a beef round is pot roast. Like, if you were to try to make a steak or a hamburger out of a beef round, you would go to prison. That is what is fair. But even for pot roast, most people don't even use it because it's that bad. Unless you're willing to cook it for like 8 hours, you're not even going to be able to chew it. And, well, I'll let you decide if you think Jack is going to cook this for the right amount of time or not.
Okay, now here's a tip. If you're going to season your meat before you cook it, room temperature. Once again, watch my lips. Oh, I'm sorry. All right, can you see my lips? Room temperature. You can do a little coarse salt. I know, I'm making a mess. I don't care. Most is going to fall off anyway, so don't worry about it. Then you're going to do a little bit of black pepper.
Alright, so in classic Jack fashion, these are the only seasonings that go in the entire dish. Half a pound of salt and some black pepper. Yummy.
Okay, we're going to brown this meat, so first thing you want to do is get that oil in there. Once the oil's heated.
Yeah, so I knew there was something fishy about somebody needing a 7-gallon jug of olive oil. Yeah, sure, they're big cuts of meat, but come on, Jack. You just dumped out half of the jug.
Okay, so you're going to take the meat and set it over here for right now. We're not done with that yet. Put it right on over here. You're going to take the mushrooms and the onions. I cut all my mushrooms in half, okay? And I did big semicircles of onions. All right, you can just dump those right in here. Ready?
Okay, so I didn't even really realize this until I started reading some of the comments on this video, but apparently this isn't even a pot roast. And I mean, it makes sense now that I've read it, but this didn't even cross my mind while watching. But a pot roast is defined by the vegetables you have in it. So like mainly the carrots and the potatoes, which makes sense now that I think of it because you could just slow roast any meat and it doesn't make it a pot roast. So this isn't even Lazy Man's pot roast. This is like a stew at best.
You're going to grab the beef stock. You can use your own, or you can pre-buy it. We're going to cover this up. We just got to cook that in the oven. 2.5 hours at 350 degrees, okay?
Yeah, no, you heard that right. 2.5 hours at 350. The entire point of a pot roast is to roast it, and that kind of cooking time might be okay for like a 2-pound pot roast, but those cuts of beef looked about 2 pounds each. Yeah, it's safe to say the end product of this recipe is not going to be very good.
Oh, look at how beautiful that is. Is that gorgeous? Look at that. Oh my goodness. Okay, now remember, when you take this meat out, okay, you're going to want to let it set. Never cut your meat right away. Look how beautiful that is. Isn't that gorgeous? The onions and the mushrooms. All right, we're gonna put this right in there.
Okay, so here's where Jack makes a mistake that isn't even funny, really. I don't know if you guys caught that, but the plate that he put the cooked meat back onto was the plate that he had the raw meat sitting on. You can literally see that there is still blood on the plate from the raw meat. That is just a genuine safety hazard.
What you can do is dress it up, get a little juice, a little bit of these mushrooms. Right, like that. It's beautiful. The onions, just let it fall where it may.
And here's where we really start going downhill. So now we have the blood-infected meat being covered in what is essentially mushroom and olive oil water. Like he didn't put together any roux or try to thicken this up at all. I mean, this just looks like sewage water.
Absolutely gorgeous. It's gonna fall apart, and I'm gonna show you in just 1 second, but we gotta let this set. Look at this. Oh yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna show you how tender it is, okay? Some of the toughest meat ever, and it just, look at that. Just pulls apart beautifully. Oh yeah, look. Just comes right apart, right off. You could just rip it off with a fork. Isn't that gorgeous? Look at that. It's just falling apart.
Okay, so if you've never even been within a mile radius of a pot roast before, then you might be fooled by this. But I'm sorry to break it to you, Jack, but this is not in fact falling right apart. It honestly looks like you are having to use all of your strength to try to get this meat to come off. If you've ever had a real pot roast, you know the effort required to cut through it is about the same as it is with butter. It looks like the meat is still alive and fighting back.
Now before I try this out, I gotta tell you, how good was that? That was easy. You browned it in the salt and pepper, you pulled the meat out, you threw your onions and mushrooms and you cooked it in the juice. You threw everything in there with some beef stock and stuck it in the oven. The oven did all the work. And now this inexpensive piece of meat is just absolutely falling apart right at the touch of a fork. Oh man. You gotta make this right away. You can make this every week. Switch it to pork, switch it to chicken, use chicken broth instead of beef broth. Have fun with this. Lazy Man's Pot Roast. I'll see you on the next Cooking with Jack. Take care.
Okay, so I let that play out a little bit longer than I normally would have, just to show you that he was still chewing when he was closing out the video. So you're telling me that it's falling apart, but you can't swallow it after chewing it for 20 seconds? Okay, Jack, whatever you say. You know, I went into this with genuine hope. I didn't think it was physically possible to mess up something like a pot roast. I guess that just goes to show that you can never underestimate Jack. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and walk on over to that subscribe button and touch it. It's free. It won't cost you anything. But for now, that's all I have for you today. Bye.
Subscribe.